So this interview is about Indo-Soviet cultural relations, in particular Eagle Films' relationship with Soviet production houses and the films that you did as joint co-productions. If you could please tell me your name, your birth date, and where we are sitting today.
Okay. My name is Umesh Mehra. I'm born on the 6th of August 1953. Right now we are in Mumbai at my office in Film Center building, Thardev, near Haji Ali.
Thank you. Can you please describe your profession and...
Okay. I started my career as a assistant film director, then I became a film director, and have been doing film direction for about 30 years, 29 years. Simultaneously, at one point of time, I started becoming the producer as well as the director. That was after the passing away of my father, who was the producer who founded Eagle Films way back the year I was born.
Thank you. Would you be able to describe how your film studio, Eagle Films, founded by your father, began becoming interested in Soviet productions?
I'll trace the history because it is a very interesting part of history. We have been a film production company since, like I said, 1953. And somewhere in the late 70s, actually in the late 60s, we acquired two cinemas. One is Plaza Cinema in Delhi, and the second one is Minerva Cinema in Mumbai. We also have our own studios, etc. But the story is connected to the film cinema halls. At that time, so Export Film wanted to start showing their films in India, and they were unable to get cinema screens. Particularly, the films were not popular at all, not been so far, because they were all, very sad films and based on war and whatever. So things were not working out, and finally, my father struck a deal with them in which he would give them, I think, 2 weeks every year in each of the cinemas. And they would hold kind of a festival and whatever. And that's how the relationship developed. Then it so happened that there was a co-production signed between the Soviet film with a South Indian company headed by, if I'm not mistaken, it was with MGR. He was a big name, stalwart. He eventually became chief minister. Communications being what they were those days, these guys back home means back in Russia, were all set, they script everything, and they sent these guys that we are coming for the shoot. I don't know what happened. I was still a young boy then. And they came here, and those guys over there said, "What are you talking about? We're not going to shoot any film with you." And they were desperate. So somehow they used that connection to my father, and knowing that we were in film production. So they said, "Please organize the shoot for us." So our team got in, and they did about 15-20 days of shooting, most of it in Bangalore. We give them the crew, whatever they needed, all the complete production. 15-20 days, they finished their work. Everything was to their satisfaction, and they paid for it. We had nothing, we just helped. And they were too happy. And the word got back that, Mehra went out of his way and did everything for us. So in the next time, the festival was coming up, I think Tashkent Film Festival, 76, 77, I forget the exact year. Most likely 76. When, before that, this thing about co-producing with India, with us, was mooted. And huge delegation used to go those days, about 60-70 people from India itself, and Raj Kapoor was always one of them. So we landed there, and the discussion was to make a co-production. We were carrying 3 scripts from our side, and they were all very with big names of from the Indian side. The directors had also gone. I, of course, was an assistant at that time, assistant director. Was working in the company, but so I had taken a promise from all 3 of them that whichever script gets finalized, I will assist you. Please, you must take me on board. And so anyway, we went there, and for one reason or the other, the scripts were not agreed upon, could not be agreed upon. One was somewhere based on, there was an involvement of Afghanistan, Pathans. It was a family story but concerned Afghanistan. So that was the time they had just invaded Afghanistan. So that was out. There was another one which was based on Mirza Ghalib, who was a very famous poet. But then the question came, how can you translate poetry into another language? I mean, it's not the same thing. So the whole thing had fizzled out. There was no co-production to happen. And we were all packing up. Everybody went back, and my father and me were heading to London. Family was there for a break. So we were in Tashkent. And we flew to Moscow and to take our flight to London. So obviously we just went across to have a cup of coffee with them. And they were all very sad, the big bosses there, that, we thought that co-production happening. So can't we find a project which is common to both of us? And that's when my father dropped in. Why don't we do Ali Baba? It's a theme which is not political, it's not anything, it's just entertainment, and it's a story which has been told hundreds of years ago. So everybody was, wow, what an idea, fantastic, let's go for it. So it was finalized, and then of course it was that your directors have gone back, so who's going to direct from your end? So I was sitting there and he said, my son will direct. So I became a director and Ali Baba was born. But you must understand, that was the time of the Soviet Union. The Iron Curtain was fully intact. I mean, we were not allowed to visit anything besides our hotel, the studio. I mean, nobody was rude to us or anything, but it was just, you were sort of chaperoned everywhere and only shown what you were to be shown. And but it was very interesting because invariably students are the ones who are what we call the guys who are out there, and there were quite a lot of Indian students in all these places, still are, I think. So we would meet some of the students, and and they would then come out with the stories, and it was Brezhnev's time, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, they and the writers, even those days, I remember all the writers, they would speak openly. They didn't give a damn. They would see that big potted, you get drunk and abuse. So it had its fun moments, and of course it was a difficult thing to make Ali Baba, because two cultures which are so completely different. On those days, huge restrictions on foreign currency, because you can't carry money or bring back money. Then our cinema is quite different from any other cinema. It has its own special genre. And right from whether it was Dharmender to play Ali Baba, because we were clear that if we don't have the lead actors from India, the movie can't be made, because nobody will see it in India otherwise. But so they had agreed to it, but when they saw Dharmender, they threw a fit, because I think he was maybe in his 30s. And they say he's supposed to be a young boy, 18-year-old. In India, the hero is always 18-year-old. So then, of course, that and Hema Malini, they were the top actors at that time. Zeenat was in it. And what I think that they did was brilliant, is they took all the top actors from the various, from Georgia, from Russia, from Moscow, from Uzbekistan. Every top actor was in the film. So it became like a super multi-star cast film. And of course, there was a lot of hype, never been done.
Which film production company was this?
From us, we were Eagle Films.
Oh, no.
And it was Soviet film. I mean, there was only the government, and we worked in Uzbekistan mostly, so it was Uzbek Film Studio.
Not Gorky film.
No, not Gorky, Mosfilm. Uzbek film, and we did our post-production only the 70 was done in Mosfilm. So that went off very well. It took time adjusting to understanding. There were disagreements on things like, we would want songs and they didn't want songs, and we would want more action and they didn't want more action. So finally we agreed to have 2 edits. So they had their own edit, we had our own edit. Ours was about 20 minutes longer. But the net result was that the film was a smash hit everywhere. Till today, it is one of the biggest, it's amongst the top 5 films of all time in the USSR. So, nothing succeeds like success. Before the film release, there was a big problem because we had one song with Zeenat Aman dancing in the cave, and there was like disco lights going below. And they are very, discotheque in Alibaba, how can it be? And even now, when I went last couple of years ago, when they got to know that, and the band started playing Khatuba, the song which is from Alibaba. So it's still very much alive. When I landed up in Moscow last 2 months ago, I went for a holiday. So typically they take time in processing your visa. They look at you as, scan you. So then I spoke to them in Russian, and I managed to speak Russian. And I told them who I was, and they were smiling and they helped. So these things, I think, end of the day, people are the same everywhere. That's my understanding. Everywhere, the human beings are the same. Political differences, whatever they may be for people like us who are artists or connected to the arts, it doesn't matter.
So, back to the discotheque, and the songs and dances, you were talking about how there are 2 different cultures and you had to work together. So would you say that they, on the Soviet side, did they want a more realistic portrayal? Is that what? Or what was the...
Yes, we tend to go a little melodramatic, overboard. Like I said, if we want action, those days, horses and things blowing away, we had introduced the theme of gunpowder in that gunpowder has just been discovered. So that was, with the horses tumbling and this all, it was fantasy, but they didn't want it to go into this kind of, where the horses are falling in slow-mo and people, they don't want any of that. But end of the day, they did their edit, but the material was the same. So they had to use it. It's not that they couldn't, they must have taken away whatever 20 minutes of the film. But still it stayed what it was, which was good. And I think, the theme itself, which we incorporated into the film, somehow, if you were to see the film today, you'll understand what I'm saying. Because the story of Alibaba is supposed to be in Gulabad. It's the village, the city of Gulabad. And it starts with the water supply being stopped. So they start selling water. The concept of selling water as in bottled water today or etc. Those days everybody drank from the tap. So that concept has grown today and you will identify with it. And we bought it that time because, I couldn't understand, when you went out and bought a bottle of water, it cost nothing, 10 kopecks. But petrol cost 8. So water was more expensive and I thought it's ridiculous. So we introduced that. And then somewhere we played on there was an emotional connect between the countries. the fantasy of the queen, the princess, the bit of magic. So I think all that helped. It was, other than this water business, there was no political overtones at all in the film. And probably for that time, that era, it was something unheard of in that part of the world.
And so, which locations did you shoot in?
Oh, we shot all over the place. We shot in, of course, all the studios work was in Uzbekistan, Tashkent mostly, and Samarkand, Bukhara. Then we went to Dushanbe. Then we went to Chingam, a couple of places which I mean, they were talking 35, 40 years ago now. 35 years ago. So
In India?
in India, of course, we shot a lot. We shot in Mumbai. You see, the thing was, we had divided the film into two parts, half. So half shot there, half shot here. And so some of the sets were put up in India. The house, Ali Baba's house and all that. Then we shot some of the mountain part in some quarry mines in Mumbai and in Delhi, at Bhatti mines in Delhi. Then we shot in Mahabaleshwar, all the river, some part of that. Then we shot in Jaipur. All the palace work was in Jaipur. So it was a big production, big budget.
In terms of the budget, I wanted to ask you, since in Soviet Union the film studios were government owned and Eagle Films is not government owned. So how were those kind of negotiations in this financial sense working with
the method, which I can't believe that at that time my father thought of something like this. He was not even a graduate. He's risen from. Those were the days when you were not allowed any foreign exchange to be taken out of the country. Hard times. Nor were they allowed to bring in any. So what we did was we divided the script into half, roughly. So this shooting will be done there, this shooting will be done here. These actors are yours, these actors are ours. You pay for yours, we pay for ours. When we come to you, you put us up in the hotel, you feed us. When you come here, we put you up in the hotel and we feed you. Ticket you buy your own, I buy my own. So there was no money going back and forth. So we, broke it into a kind of a barter, which was brilliant. It was unheard of. Because those days, I don't remember, but if you travel as an Indian, you never got more than $100. And to make a production like this, so they had a budget of, I remember, in those days, 8 million rubles, which is a lot of money. When the dollar changed at, if I'm not mistaken, 64 kopek to a dollar, means the ruble was stronger than the dollar. So even $8 million 35 years ago was a lot of money.
And how, in terms of the casting, did Eagle Productions have a say in which Russian or Soviet? No.
We didn't. What we did was each of us did our own casting, and we shared. We showed them, well, these are the people we are doing. You get whoever you're doing. There was, like I said, there was a disagreement. They didn't want Dharmender. They wanted a youngster. It's not possible. They had a very big star from there called Sophie Kochaureli, playing Dharmender's mother. And she looked young, and they probably thought 18-year-old's mother. And so then we thought it wasn't, but she was such a big star and she added into the film. So they grade her and stuff like that. So, but we didn't go into each other's territory in that sense. We stuck to that. We also realized that there was a certain rhythm that each director had. So they had like I said, slightly more slower rhythm. They didn't want. Here we go. There's more cuts and more shots. So we used to take two takes. 2 okay takes. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. And so the negative went, one negative stayed there, one negative here.
And I guess I can shift to another question.
Anyway.
Aside from Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, what other joint Indo-Soviet productions did Eagle Films?
The next one was in 82, 83. It's about 4 or 5 years later, a movie called Soni Maiwal. I have a picture somewhere. Right up there. You can take a picture later. That was with Dharmender's son as the hero, Sunny Deol and Poonam Dillon. It's a love story, a legendary love story of a guy who came supposedly from Bukhara, a trader who came in and fell in love with a potter's daughter. So that was the next one. And that again also, I mean, there was even more Indian than Alibaba. But that was again a big hit. The music was extraordinary.
So would you say that the Alibaba's success in the Soviet Union gave them confidence to continue?
Oh yes. Nothing succeeds like success. So it gave us also confidence. But after Alibaba, I got involved in 2 other projects myself in India, so I couldn't jump into one immediately. So it took a couple of years, then we got onto Soni Maiwal. They call it Legend of Love, Legend de Ludwig. So that was it. Then again, then after that there was a gap of almost 10 years. Because after that I was doing film after film after film. Yeah, I didn't just have the thing to go back. And that was the time things started breaking down, and Moscow went here and that went there, and it was. So in 92 we did Shikari, and that was with Mithun, who was a big star over there, and Nasir, and we used the circus as a backdrop. But of course that was with Uzbek. It was no more the USSR. Moscow wasn't involved anymore.
Oh, so this was after the breakup?
After the breakup,
immediately?
Yes. So there were, by that time one had to make a lot of compromises in terms of, availability of, because the same studio of course existed, but there was the equipments were not upgraded, and people had left their jobs and joined other things, and it was difficult time. Turmoil was there, budgets were very tight. So this was Uzbek film, but there was a private producer in that sense involved.
So Uzbek film had already, it's still government now partially, right?
It is still government. But it's I would say a semblance of a shadow of what it was in those days. I mean, the studio was fabulous. We had nothing like it here. The equipment was unreal. I mean, you got equipment by like Ariflexes or whatever you want. Everything was available. Except they didn't have Kodak, for which that was our contribution. Because they had their own film, I forget the name. So we used to provide the film negative. And as a matter of fact, the peculiarities of the two systems, very interesting point. Just like their railroad is different from the rest of the world. It's 6 inches more or less, I don't know which one. But it's different. Like this, their cameras have normal cameras in which you run a film negative, right? You shot on a film negative earlier days. Has negative perforation. The perforations are rounded, so the claws which move the film inside are different. These guys had what we call positive perforation, the same perforation which is on a positive film, which is shown in the cinemas. So they did away with the negative perforation. And as a result, you could not buy Kodak off the shelf to use in their cameras. It had to be specially ordered in France, Kodak France, and shipped.
So you would do that on your side?
We would order it because they didn't have. So, and we were allowed. They would bring it to India, and then we would officially take it. Film was always allowed in India as an import.
And so when Shikari was, Shikari was with Uzbek Films already after the fall.
Right.
And there's a very famous scene in there with Yalu Glutiba.
With?
Yalu Glutiba, I Love You song.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I was wondering if you could describe that scene, because I think that's one of the famous songs.
Well, I don't know. We shot in Riga, that much I remember. We went all the way to a couple of beautiful places in Riga, another beautiful city. Because by that time the circus had moved to Riga and the tigers were there, and we needed to shoot the tigers. So we shot that song and the circus, part of the circus there. Other than that, I mean, it was a beautiful song, and it was shot just like, frankly, for me, it was like shooting any other Indian song. Just the locales were different, and so I don't know what more I can describe, because when songs like Jadukar in Ali Baba, or the climax song in again in Ali Baba, where the daggers are there, the dagger dance song, very famous, and so they were like exceptional pieces of choreography that was staged. And Khatuba, like I told you, they didn't have a concept of, like they said, Khatuba, you just place the camera and let them dance and that's it. Why do we need to have? And we had maybe in that one song about 5 minutes, no shot is more than 20-30 seconds. So that umpteen number of shots. And they had budgeted it for a 2-day shoot or something like that. And by 2 days they started panicking, what's going on? So what do you mean what's going on? We're working. We took 8.5 days to do that. And it was a huge problem. Because that was one area where they didn't have control. It was our choreographers and our actress, but it was in their studio. But they had budgeted it because they never shot songs the way we did. But by the time when we came up to Shikari and Soni Mawal, these problems were now accepted that, all right, yes, they'll be shot like this. Action will be done like this. So that's it.
Why do you think that these films became so popular in the Soviet Union? You were just describing how there was a different, during shooting originally with Ali Baba, they did not think you would be taking so many shots, this kind of fast shots on the choreography scenes. But it seems that it became extremely popular in the Soviet Union. Why do you think there was a success?
It's about the same time where the very famous Sholay was released in India. Ali Baba just came a couple of years later. And for us, when Sholay came, it was like something else. People had not seen action on that level, or a film mounted in this style, and it was like a Wild West, cowboy western India, but very much set in India. So the similar thing, this was a unique film from all the kind of films that were being shown, whether American or other, local Russian or Uzbek. It's a very unique experience for them, for anybody. I remember when it opened in India, the first scene where there's that, these guys, the Rasboiniks, the robbers, 40 thieves, and they come and he says, open sesame, Kolja Sim Sim. And there's this waterfall, and the waterfall goes in reverse, and there's fire, and then the mountain splits, and fire comes out, and then fire goes down, and these guys ride in. There should be applause in the cinema halls, because it was a huge, nobody could understand how it was done. It was not the time of CG. It was all done in camera. In camera. And the camera, just to give you, if somebody today, they will not understand, but a concrete base was made in which the camera was locked in concrete for 6 months. because you can't afford even the camera to move a centimeter. Because the whole, and then masks were created, and layers are created, but all being done in camera. You're shooting it, taking it to the lab, looking, is it all right, coming back, shooting it, taking it to the lab, adding the actors. It's a tremendous job. In those days, it was not unheard of. So all these things were very new. The songs, the costumes, very exotic. And whether it's Spielberg with all his action movies and whoever did, it's always worked on this formula. You give something, a unique film experience, which even today works.
Did you attend the premiere of Alibaba or Troy's Chor in Soviet Union?
No, we had our own here. They don't have that. Here it was a huge event, and I went all over the country to the cinemas to see. But we have a place called Indore, which is not far. And there the movie releases one day earlier than the rest of the country. Some ancient tradition. So I went there. First day, first show, as we call it. And when I saw the reaction, I said, no, I don't need to see anymore. And it was universally a hit.
After that was your first director experience?
No, it was my second actually. This first was this movie called Hamare Tumhare.
Oh, sorry,
with them, yes.
And after that, did you take over the rest of the joint productions?
Take over in what sense?
In a sense, your father was still...
My father was always a producer. He would not even come on the sets. He was always monitoring. He was the original movie mogul.
I see. When you were a child, aside from film, what other memories do you have of the Soviet Union in terms of either geopolitical relationship with India or...
Nothing at all. I had no clue what the Soviet Union was. I had no clue what... once in a while when, you had some guests come in, or like I said, that's also way back in the late 60s, that you got to know, oh, they are Russians. But other than that, I had nothing. And one had been brought up, so to say, more influenced by the Western media and Western, which always showed the Soviet Union as the bad guy, which is, I don't know, for me it didn't matter. It was bad guy. Not did matter. I was a kid, and but when I went there, like I said, when you meet the people, whether there or there, people are the same. And I was, surprised that they would say there are ration food queues, and I'm wondering what the hell are they talking about? And especially Indians, we Indians, till today, have something called a ration card, and we can draw grains and food and whatever against that ration card at a subsidized price. And you may be a millionaire, but still everyone will have that ration card and take that 5-10 kilos. So if they were doing it in the Soviet Union, what's wrong? The government was providing you subsidized. I must tell you how money, let's say over there, if you had 100 rubles as a salary, you lived a great life, because transport cost you 5 rubles a month. Electricity was like 5 or 10 rubles a month. Education free, medical free. And food was not expensive. So you were a lot of surplus. I remember they had a craze for Levi's jeans. So one of my chief AD was wearing Levi jeans. And the guy on the other side, who was a senior lightman, he got after him, can you change it? I'm not going to. He said, I will give you 100 rubles right now. 100 rubles was like $400. He said, fine, yeah. He took his trouser, gave him. I mean, he did the amount of shopping he did with 100 rupees was not funny. So the guys had money. They still, I mean, those days they had surplus money. There was nowhere to spend. So it's very famous that if you were in Moscow or anywhere, and if you, first of all, you always carry a plastic bag. Everybody carries a bag. And the moment you saw a queue, you just get into it. Yeah, you just get into it because something at the end of it is there. So everybody in the queue also go. So these are the peculiarities of a country.
And after the
It's it's like people going for Apple queues. People queues to buy an Apple phone or iPhone. I mean, what the hell? You go tomorrow, you'll get it. You go online, you'll get it. Why do you have to stand overnight for 3 days in the queue? Anyway.
After Shikari, were there any other joint productions?
Yes, we did one in 2003. That was completely, that was again the same Uzbek film. Thus, it was called Ye Mohabbat Hai. And that we shot mostly in a place called Khiva. Very beautiful place. It's on the Silk Route. It's like a museum city, you know, it's the whole city is just there and the few people still live there. And so we shot a lot of the film there and in India. So that was the last. After that, their markets are completely now, there's no cinemas left, no cinema halls left. I mean, they're all gone to video. And everything is, pirated. So they're making their own movies. Most of the guys whom I knew that time still on the last legs, but you know, budgets of $8,000 to $15,000. They shoot on your video camera, release it on video, and that's it. But Moscow is taken off big time. I mean, I have a script right here. When I met one of my old acquaintances in Moscow, and they proposed this joint venture. But I said we have to work on the same concept, like eventually, till even now, the Indian market is bigger than the Russian market. So if we are eventually going to get our funds back from the Indian market, we have to slant it so that it works in India. And that film, that's right, on the project is completely a Russian girl who's the main lead. Hardly anything for the hero. So I said, first of all, it'll never work in India. It has to have a big hero, a big male actor. That's a peculiarity of our business.
So in India, you need a male hero, but the female lead can
still... Can change, yeah, that can, but the male can't.
Why not?
I don't want to put my money where my mouth. Why not? Why should I experiment? It just doesn't work.
Are they okay with the Indian male lead?
Yeah. The Indians.
Yeah. No.
They're okay with it, but the script is completely slanted to the script works. I mean, it's a story of a woman. It's an action film, but completely like a Russian superwoman kind of thing. Doesn't work for us.
So you still need, even now, when you do joint productions, you still have to really negotiate all of these aspects.
No, this was one-off. It's not every day that happens. I've had a number of negotiations with American companies. But you see, America is different because they have their own market. They have their huge market. So you make your film slanted towards America. And so accordingly, my involvement in finance, or because my recovery is also going to be that much less. So it's end of the day, it's all, I mean, it is commercial. It's not we're not here for just the art. We're Bollywood, we're Hollywood.
So back in the 80s and 70s, 80s, 90s, did you also work with American, do you have negotiations?
I had lots of them.
And what was the differences between working with Americans and working with Soviet production companies?
No, there was not too much difference, except like I said, I had this thing that the film has to be, the major part of the production has to happen in India, because I will invest in Indian rupees. I can't invest in, send my money out. That doesn't work for me. So that was one criteria, in which, one project with Goldie Hawn that was almost sealed, signed, documents, everything in place. Unfortunately, their financing fell short from their end. They didn't work out. There's a couple of other projects. And there also, it's all because, everybody works on tax breaks and on this. It's all, it's very complicated arithmetic. And so, I went, after Alibaba, I set up a meeting with 20th Century Fox. It's so interesting. After Alibaba's success, I set up a meeting with 20th Century Fox. And they had their presence here, so the country manager set up my meeting there. And I flew to London. And so I had the meeting, and it was 10:30 in the morning or whatever time, and I got in there at 10:30. And I said, I have an appointment. So they made me wait like half an hour. And finally I was brought into some office of some second assistant. Maybe not the boss who I wanted to meet. Somebody below, down the line. I didn't even. By that time, I was ready to walk out. So anyway, I went up and, yes, how can we help you? Nothing. So I said, no, sorry. I've come here and I've made a huge mistake. So he was like, what happened? I said, well, in my country, it may be a small pond, but I'm a big fish there. I've just realized that in your country, you have a big pond and I'm going to be a very small fish. So I'm going back, thank you. I didn't even have coffee, I just left.